Good evening, everyone. Welcome for being here tonight. I want to call the meeting to order at 7:01. The land acknowledgement. As visitors of this land, the town of Bradford, Gwillimbury acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, which includes Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi Nation, collectively known as Three Fires Confederacy. We recognize that Huron-Wendat, Chippewa, and Haudenosaunee nations have walked on this territory over time. In times of great change, we recognize more than ever the importance of honoring Indigenous history and culture and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation, respect, good health with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. So I will reconvene this meeting, reconvene the meeting at 7:01. Motions, there's no motions rising out of closed. So we'll go right to the adoption of the agenda. Just waiting for my computer. Thank you. So the regular council agenda dated December 20th, 2022 be adopted as printed. May I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Verkijk, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sandhu. Question, concerns with the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. So just before we start, we're declaration of pecuniary interest, then on the general nature. So if something comes up now or at the time it presents itself and you find yourself in that position, please declare then and we can deal with it at that moment. So seeing none, we'll move right along. We now have a deputation. So we're on to 8. We have a deputation from our police service board, our chair Garapi and police chief, acting police chief Van Dyke, if you would like to come up. And I don't know if everybody's met them, but this is our acting police chief and the chair of the board. And they're about to present the police budget, the 2023 Simcoe police budget. I'll turn the mic over to you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Leduc. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sandhu, and members of council. We are pleased to be here tonight to share the details and answer any questions about our 2023 operating capital budget request for the South Simcoe Police Service. After a thorough review, the draft budget was unanimously approved by the board at its regular meeting of November 23rd. This is what we believe a very fair budget. It features a percentage budget increase of 6.75%. And you'll find it fairly consistent with other police services throughout the province. Contractual increases account for almost 5% of the increase, and the service is not immune to current inflationary pressures. As is the case with police budgets, salaries and benefits make up the largest portion of spending. We continue to modernize the service through technology and strategic hiring. Firstly, technology. Following an extensive body-worn camera pilot project, recently the Police Services Board approved the body-worn camera project for service set to roll out in early 2023. Under the body-worn camera project, 75 Axon body-worn cameras will be issued to all frontline officers, along with the officers in the traffic and community mobilization and engagement units. As a result, the police service is entering into a 5-year agreement with Axon Public Safety Canada, Inc., starting on January 1. The contract includes up to 2 product upgrades over the 5-year period. Costs are fixed over the life of the contract. Modernization comes at a cost, as you will hear from Acting Chief Van Dyke, but the investment is well worth it for the technology that is aimed at enhancing trust, accountability, and transparency between the officers and our public. The budget includes the hiring of 2 new recruits and 3 full-time civilians. Our communities are changing. We're seeing an increase in serious and organized crime. You will be aware there were 4 homicides in our communities this year, including 2 South Simcoe police officers, as well as a number of violent home invasions and street shootings. The new hire recruits will go to backfilling positions as we increase capacity in our criminal investigation branch to investigate these types of serious crimes. 2 civilian positions will be as information support services as Crown Brief clerks. The 3rd civilian will fill the role of a full-time redaction clerk for the body-worn camera project. These civilian roles will enable officers to focus on their frontline duties and ease the responsibility of the owner's paperwork. It will put proactive patrol back into our communities. In other words, boots on the ground. The service is also seeking to hire 1 contract person as part of our next generation 911, and commonly recalled the NG 911 project, which is slated to start in full in 2023, and 1 contract special constable for our courts unit. These are really important times for our police service as it continues to keep moving forward and look for ways to be more efficient and implement technology to modernize. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. In my view, the town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, and Innisfil are getting tremendous value for their money. I'm incredibly proud of the men and women of the South Simcoe Police Service. I look forward to working with you to ensure that the service continues to our communities and grow with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. I'm just going to run you through the rest of the presentation, and we'll get into a little more of the nitty-gritty and the details. So budget considerations for 2023, population growth and community changes. As the chair said, we have seen an increase in serious and organized crime in our communities. I think you guys all know this, but our communities are changing and not for the better. The need to increase efficiency with clerical support for our officers. On a typical 12-hour shift, our officers will spend at least 40% of their time in the station doing paperwork. We need to start putting patrol hours back on the road and into our communities. Instead of having officers doing paperwork in the station, it can be more efficiently done by civilian support personnel. And finally, we have the CRTC mandated NG 911 project and the body-worn camera project that the chair has already mentioned. So population growth. For both Bradford and Innisfil have experienced massive population growth in the last number of years. As you can see from the StatsCan data from the 2016 and 2021 census, Bradford grew by a total of 7,555 residents, Innisfil by 6,760 residents, for a total of 14,315 residents in 5 years. That's almost a municipality the size of the town of Midland in 5-year period. So the towns have grown. Calls for service. Calls for service have flatlined in 2020 and 2021, largely due to COVID. But the types of calls that our officers are experiencing on a day-to-day basis have changed dramatically. As you can see back in 2017, 2018, 2019, especially 2017, 2019, we were pushing 30,000 calls for service. During that time period, about 40% of those calls were proactive or generated by the officer that was out patrolling the community and detecting crime as opposed to responding to crime. We are now sitting at about 80% reactive policing and 20% proactive policing because it's just gotten so much busier. Crime stats. So these stats are from November 2021 to November 2022, and you can see the comparisons. So not all of them have gone up, but I do want to note some, highlight some areas. Stolen vehicles. You can see we've seen a massive increase in stolen vehicles. We have organized crime that comes to our communities and targets the theft of high-end vehicles. Last year, it was Lexus vehicles. This year, it's Dodge Ram pickups. We're losing 4, 5, 6 Dodge Ram pickup trucks a week in our communities. And it's organized crime, theft rings that do not live in our community and come from outside of our community. It's not just our community that's experiencing it, it's all within the GTA. Robberies, although we're down, one robbery over the same period last year, back in early part of the year, we had a couple of very serious home invasions in our community that could have easily ended up being homicides. They didn't, but we're talking guns, tying people up, gagging them, stealing their money. We managed to solve that one, but we're starting to see some very, very violent crimes in our communities. Domestic disputes, you can see that they're up quite a bit from the same period last year. So what you need to know about a domestic dispute is that is a 2 to 3 officer response call, 2 at minimum, perhaps 3. And I'll run you through a typical domestic where you have a scenario, an officer makes an arrest, he has to take the body and bring the body back to the station, the person under arrest. Another officer has to stay at the scene and take all the statements. Then back at the station, the sergeant has to come off the road, parade the prisoner and log the prisoner in the cells, and eventually release the prisoner. And then the statement taking officer and the arresting officer spend the next 6 hours doing reports and the Crown brief because in certain times they end up going for bail. But as you can see, one domestic occurrence with an arrest is a very labor intensive scenario and takes officers off the road. Impaired driving, again, we're up substantially again this year. Post-COVID, we're seeing a huge increase in the amount of drunk driving in our communities, often involving collisions. And again, you have one officer that's arresting the person for impaired driving. The second officer has to investigate the collision at the scene. And a third officer has to come off the road to run the breathalyzer instrument to do the testing. So as you can see, that's a very labor intensive situation as well. Mental health calls again are up substantially. Again, that's a 2, 3, sometimes 4 or 5 officer response call, depending on, the person in crisis and the amount of violence. And often if we make an apprehension, we spend hours waiting at the hospital. I believe our wait times, they average about 2.5 hours at each of our hospitals per apprehension. That is a 2 officer minimum stay at the hospital. You can't sit there with just one officer. If they're very violent, sometimes 3. And it ties up a lot of our resources. Homicides, again, we had 4 homicides so far this year, 2 involving our officers in Innisfil and 2 in this community. And finally, you can see shoplifting is up substantially. We have organized theft rings that are targeting our LCBOs and the Cookstown Outlet Mall stealing high-end goods. So guns and gangs are coming to your community, and we've also had 4 street shootings in Bradford, West Gwillimbury. One just a couple of weeks ago where the bullets are flying through people's windows. We have vehicles driving down the 8th line and Dissette Street shooting at each other. And we have street shootings in downtown Bradford where gunmen are shooting at each other across the street. Moving on, a little bit some staffing numbers for council. So based on 2021 Stats Can data, we had 110 officers per 100,000 population. Our neighbors to the south had 137 officers per 100,000 population. The Barrie Police Service 156. You can see the provincial average and national average are quite a bit higher. Back in 2021, we had 93 sworn police officers for a population of 86,200 based on the combined population of Bradford and Innisfil based on 2021 census data. In 2022, we added 9 sworn police officers, and factoring in the growth of 2%, which I believe is quite conservative for our communities. Maybe based on today's numbers, but future numbers, we could see an increase in that. We're sitting at 116 officers per 100,000. With the addition of 2 officers in 2023, that number will flatline. But we're proposing to hire another 4 in 2024 and another 4 in 2025. But that's not yet approved by the board, and that's for later budget submissions. Also in the past year, we lost 12 officers to other services, 9 to the OPP and 3 to services to the north, because we used to be a service of choice where officers would come from the GTA and move here. They are now moving from here and going north where it's cheaper to live. So local comparison analysis. So based on Stats Can data, our cost per capita for 2021 was $236 per capita. This is based on actuals, not on budgeted, but on actual numbers. Our neighbors to the north, $387, and our neighbors to the south, $307. I also did a little bit of research. Currently, I believe that the police budget makes up 13% of the town's overall global budget. It's about the same in Innisfil. Our neighbors to the north in Barrie, their 2021 budget was over 22% of the municipality's budget. And in York Region to the south, it was 29% of the regional municipality's overall budget. So my message to you is you are getting value for your money in this community. Our crime severity index is something that we are very proud of. And we have one of the lowest crime severity indexes in Ontario. However, that was based on 2021 numbers, and there has been a lot of serious crime since that point in time. And unfortunately, we are going to start to see that number rise. So for the 2023 operating budget, we are proposing to hire 2 constables to enhance our criminal investigation branch that is frankly overwhelmed with the amount of work they have. As the board chair already mentioned, we will be implementing a body-worn, the 75 body-worn cameras in 2023, and we need to hire 1 redaction clerk to redact all the body-worn camera that will have to be disclosed to the courts. It takes approximately 2.5 hours to redact 30 minutes of body-worn camera video. So you can imagine if we task our officers with doing that, you would have less officers on the street. So it's an efficiency, it keeps officers on the road, and we will employ a civilian to do that work and keep our officers on the road in our communities patrolling. We also propose to hire 2 Crown Brief clerks to put at least 80 hours worth of proactive patrol time back into our communities that they are currently not experiencing. I'll just share with you a report that I received from our court manager. Back in 2018, the service completed 542 crown briefs a year. In 2019, it rose to 669 crown briefs. In 2020, when COVID hit, it dipped a little bit to 593. Last year, we completed 806 crown briefs. And this year, we are going to hit over 900 crown briefs because we are getting busier. More of our calls are serious, and we are arresting and laying more charges than we ever have. It takes at least 3 hours for an officer to complete a simple crown brief, up to 6 hours for a more complex crown brief. The crown brief unit won't be used to complete these more complex crown briefs, but as we start off and as we start to roll out the program, we will be using it to complete these simple crown briefs. And again, it will put over 80 hours, patrol hours back into our communities on a weekly basis. Oh, sorry. We also propose to hire one full-time contract person for the NG 911 project. This is not a corner of your desk project. This is a very large project. It is CRTC mandated. We don't have a choice. And we need to backfill a position in order for us to be able to implement this project in our communication center. And finally, one court officer on a full-time contract to fill a need there. Over to new projects. Again, these are capital projects. We've already talked about the body-worn camera project. It comes at a cost of approximately $112,000 a year for hardware. That's a fixed cost over 5 years, with 2 camera refreshes over that 5-year period, and approximately $60,000 a year in software, which hits the operating budget. The NG 911 project, which the phase 1 is text to 911 as opposed to calling 911. Our go live date is Q2 2024. We are currently in the bid scoring process along with our Pride partners. And we recently found out that there is grant funding available to the tune of $208 million. So we are in the process of writing that grant. It's due January the 10th. And we have about 5-6 weeks to do it. So we're scrambling to get that done. Finally, we are going to receive a fully funded grant from the provincial government for automatic license plate readers for 14 of our cruisers. Again, that was the result of the government deciding not to renew validation stickers and having to put them on your plates. So as a result of some lobbying by the OACP, it makes it harder for us to do our job out there. These license plate readers will automatically read the plate and will be able to tell us if it's valid, whether the driver is suspended or prohibited. It's a really great tool to help detect crime and Highway Traffic Act offenses in our community. Moving on to the numbers. So you can see that we are asking for a 6.75% increase in our operating budget for 2023. Just a little breakdown for you. 4.99% of that increase is contractual salary and benefit increases, as well as step increases. We are expecting a fairly substantial increase in CPP and EI premiums, as well as WSIB premiums. And there is also one full salary in the budget for the wife of our murdered officer, because contractually we are obligated to provide her with pecuniary aid until the officer would have reached his retirement age of 60. So for the next 5 years, we essentially have a full-time salary, extra full-time salary in the budget. In addition to the contractual salary increases, we have 46 staff members that are receiving a step increase. We've hired a large amount of new staff over the last couple of years. As I've informed council, we've lost a number of officers to other services. They're replaced by younger officers for the most part. That's come in at a lower rate. And then over the next 4 years, they receive an automatic pay increase. On top of that, we have a negotiated wage increase. And we've also gapped some of our salaries over the years where we will bring people in for half a year. And but that hits your budget for the full impact the following year. So because we hired 9 officers last year and 2 civilians, we're feeling, you know, it impacts your budget in the following year. So what I'm trying to do from this point forward is try to smooth the hiring as opposed to have these very large, you know, very little hiring, then all of a sudden a big, massive hiring, because it really hits your budget for the next 3 years. And in addition to that, just some other areas of impact. Training. We have a backlog in training that we were unable to accomplish due to COVID. And of course, we're not immune to inflation like anyone else. And I believe our annual inflation rate is sitting at 6.9%. And 0.3% of our increase is as a result of inflation. So when you add it all up and you subtract an extra $205,000 in revenue that we're expecting, our increase adds up to 6.75% for the year. But even if we did nothing and hired nobody, we'd still be looking at over a 5% increase. Our staff members that I've talked about add up to 2.12% of this increase. The remainder is all contractual and inflation. Capital budget. So, our capital ask for 2023 is $1,007,849, which is slightly less than the $1,026,325 that we forecast. Again, you can see under communications, we have $24,000 for just replacement equipment for our radio system, $35,000 to top up a project. In 2023, we need to make some radio enhancements to a tower site in Guildford, and also add a tower on the new Bradford West Gwillimbury water tower on 88 towards Bond Head, because we anticipate quite a bit of growth in that community over the next number of years. And we need to have sufficient radio coverage to service that community. We've lowered the ask on our vehicles for 2023. We're seeing a lot more auction revenue. So our auction revenue is a lot higher than expected. So we were able to lower our ask there. There's a $50,000 for 2 audio recorders. We are going to ask for that in our NG 911 grant. There's $120,000 we need to replace the video system in our North and South Division to add, to increase our storage capacity from 12 months to 30 months because the courts have criticized us for only having 12-month storage capacity. We've lost a few court cases because we've been unable to provide video disclosure, because that storage, that video had been wiped. So as I spoke earlier about NG 911, you'll see $50,000 for this year. Again, we are expecting grant money, so hopefully we'll be able to return some of that money to both municipalities in the new, after we receive it. And basically, subject to any questions on that, that is the capital ask for 2023. Finally, before we get to questions, you've seen this slide before, presented it to you when we did our council orientation. But essentially 90%, it was 89% last year. This year, 90% of our budget is salaries and benefits. The remainder you can see there, clothing, equipment, staff development, fleet, facilities, and technology. You can see that only 3% of the budget comes from revenue. Of that revenue, 2% of it comes from grants that we receive from the from the provincial government. Those grants we have to write for. They are not a stable source of funding. Sometimes we are successful, sometimes we are not. They are very labor intensive to write for and provide all the updates to the government that they expect. but it only counts for 2% of our total budget. The other 1% is revenue we generate through criminal records checks, selling reconstruction reports. So the government provides the municipality with 2% of the funding, and they make all the rules. So 97% of the budget is financed through the municipal tax base. And that is our presentation, and we will open the floor to questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, Acting Police Chief Van Dyke. Appreciate that. And Chair Garpy, thank you for your opening comments. Thank you for the extensive review of your budget, Chief. Appreciate that. You can see I wasn't part of that budget process in the beginning. Mayor Keffer was, and I spoke to him about the budget. He informed me of the process that you all went through, and it's a very complex process. And I really appreciate the effort put forward by the board and the chief to find a great balanced budget in my mind, where it talks about putting people back on the streets, technology, using all the key components we can do to better service our community. So really appreciate that fine effort by the board and everybody else. So I'll open up for questions to anybody if they have any questions. Councillor Van Dyke.
Sorry, in the presentation, it showed in 2021 that you were at 110 officers per 100,000. But then later on in the slides, we're jumping to 116.
Yeah, that's because we added 9 new constables this year in 2022. But currently in 2022, we're sitting at 116. So we had 93 sworn constables in 2021. We now have 102.
Any further questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Chair Garpy, Acting Chief Van Dyke. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your service members, what you do. Because, anyone that puts on a uniform and leaves their house, when we do it, I think we have some sort of a certainty that we're coming home. When police officers or any other person that's going front line, they always have that risk. And I can say that because I have 3 members of family that are police officers. It's always in the back of your mind, the fear and the scare for the family. So I want to say thank you. I see, even though when we look at the call volumes, like you showed in your chart, from 2020 to 2021, it dropped. But when you look at the severity of the calls, they're to me are alarming. Mental health calls. When you're going to that call, you don't know what you're dealing. And I don't think sometimes the officers are equipped to deal with the mental health calls. All the help that we can give in those situations is where we need to focus. So I just want to, I don't have any questions about budget lines. I know why we need the cameras. I know why we need the IT stuff. I just wanted to say thank you to you and all that serve us in both Innisfil and Bradford.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll go to Councillor Scott first and then you.
Thank you, Chief and Chair Garpy, and I'll echo what Deputy Mayor Sandhu said. And I want to pick up on some things as well. I think first and foremost, the 80 hours that we're returning by hiring the Crown Clerks is the kind of efficiency that we really want to drive. So I applaud you for that. That frees up police officers to be on the streets doing their jobs, and that makes all kinds of sense to me. The Deputy Mayor mentioned mental health, and when I'm looking at the crime stats that have gone up, and you mentioned some of the organized crime is coming into our community from outside the local crime, so to speak, shoplifting, mental health calls, and domestic disputes and impaired driving probably do have a common mental health denominator. And I know you put in place in the last year a community well-being plan and are working on that. But Chief, I wonder if you could just speak to that side of policing and how it's changing and how you're equipping officers with the resources they need.
So first of all, just on the mental health. So we do have our community, we have a coast unit. The community outreach and response team, which is a trained police officer that works in partnership with a mental health worker from either Canadian Mental Health in Barrie or YSSN in York Region to respond to mental health calls. But when people are violent, you still need to have a trained police officer there to deal with that type of call. If they pacify or if it's a passive mental health call, we have our coast unit deal with it. They also do follow-ups later where they will, when the person is back in the community, say they've stabilized, they will follow up with them to make sure that they are seeing their mental health provider, that they are taking their medication, because we are trying to prevent it from happening again, from them to going into crisis and generating a police response. So we are proactively working on the whole, the idea of mental health in the community. But aside from the police, I think everybody's aware that our mental health is not a police matter. It is a health matter. And our health system isn't exactly in the best shape it's ever been in either. So they are also under-resourced and understaffed. So even though we have a community safety and well-being plan, we are also we have other facets of our social safety net that currently post-COVID isn't exactly healthy either. So we are doing our best to work with our mental health, or with our health providers on the mental health, the whole problem of mental health in our community. But again, they are having their own issues right now. So these are something we're going to have to work through post-COVID as we were able to stabilize, both policing in our community, but also the health system.
Thank you for that.
Just further to your comment, Councillor Scott, with regards to utilizing police officers to do police work. That's front and center for our board all the time. And it would go back to the previous chair, Lucinio Miguelo, who led that in our organization, and then Chief Andrew Fletcher. But we're always looking for alternatives to putting any sworn officer in a clerical role. And that is exampled by the Axon system we're using. And that was a concern for the board. Acting chief will remember that. We wanted to make it as easy as possible for the officers, so they're not spending a whole bunch of time. And without getting into the details, it's much, much simpler. John's team brought forward different ideas, different enhancements to the software. And the cost of this enhancement to make it easier for the police officer certainly outweighs them doing the clerical work. So, I'm quite proud of that, actually, and that the service continues to move in that vein. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Councillor Giordano.
Well, Councillor Scott actually asked two of the questions that I was going to touch on. So thank you for that. It saves me. But I actually have maybe two quick questions that maybe you can or cannot answer this time. So with the cameras that are being worn, what's the percentage of time savings that they'll be able to be involved, let's say more on the street versus filling out paperwork? Is there any additional savings if it's significant?
So where the savings is in the court process,
Okay.
because a picture's worth 1,000 words. And especially with the impaired drivers, when you disclose that body worn camera video, and the board chair has seen it himself because we showed him some video in the past. I can make an arrest and I can get up on the stand and I can testify, I stopped this car and I smelled alcohol, and the person was staggering and stumbling. But when you actually see that, you get guilty pleas, and it keeps officers out of the court and on the road.
Okay. And then my next one is the two Crown Brief officers. Is there a percentage or a known percentage of time savings that it provides officers from, or alleviating them from the paperwork? Is it is there a range or anything they could provide? I'm just curious.
So about 80 hours per week
Right.
In total for
For all the police officers.
all,
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you
which
very-
is the equivalent of 2 full-time police officers.
Right, it's significant. So that's, I was interested. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Key statement there when the chief printed a budget was that 40% of the officer's time is writing reports. And if we can eliminate that, bring that down, bring that 40% down to a lower number, it actually puts us back on the road, puts them back on the road a lot more. So I love, like I said, I love the budget. I went over it with Mayor Keffer, and I love the thoughts of the board and the thought of the chief on how you're looking at finding ways to be more efficient. And like you say, the body worn camera is an absolute excellent way to deliver efficiencies in a sense, because a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. So we thank you. And I want to just say thank you very much to your service. Thank you to the board for being there and doing things. Oh, sorry. Councillor Harper. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Thank you, Acting Chief and Chair Gerpy. Sorry for the late delay there. When you say this town is not seeing a lot of proactive work being done, 80% is reactionary. I tell you, this town feels it. They see it. It's very noticed. It's noticed on our streets, in our schools, in every neighborhood of this town. With the lack of presence on our streets, the greater risk of illegal activity, and with the greater increase in violent crimes, I feel that we're supplementing some boots on the ground here in your budget for the high need, especially when you make a statement of 80% reactionary force. It's very alarming to me. It's concerning. I would ask that maybe you look at another officer or two, because these violent crimes, if you're putting 2 in CIB, you're putting more officers for the Crown Breeze. I mean, I get that. That's great. I mentioned that in our our training. I love seeing that there now. That's great. I know that's going to be a great asset. When I spoke to a bunch of officers as well, that a lot of the calls there, but domestic disputes, 2 to 3 call ratio per call, any other fire, stuff like that. It eats up assets right away. This town is seeing it. It's hurting it. And it's very noticeable. So I'm going to challenge your budget a bit and ask that maybe you look at proposing a little increase for these violent crimes. And maybe we can do a little bit more and bring that number of 80% reactive down and bring some trust and faith back to our citizens here in Bradford.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'll just speak from the board's perspective on this. Every month, and Mayor Leduc will be more accustomed to it as he's got more time with our board. Every month I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Is it better now? Okay. Every month that's a question that's asked of the service. How do we increase our proactive our activity as opposed to reactive responses? And as we see the numbers coming forward, it's getting more and more difficult, quite frankly, with the severity of the crime. This is more of a recent phenomena than it is a long-term phenomena, but rest assured that John and his team are watching those figures, and your comments are duly noted.
Thank you. So again, we are taking steps to put more patrol hours back on the streets by taking away some of the paperwork from the officers. Again, we can only do that. So, I mean, I have a 3-year plan to find more efficiencies. I think we need to have the efficiency talk along with not just adding police officers, because you have to work smarter, not necessarily harder as well. And I do appreciate your comment, and we will be coming next year with more boots on the ground. If I had to come with a couple extra police officers, we would have been looking at probably closer to an 8% budget increase. And I don't know if council would have found that palatable or not, but that would be the reality of it, because to add 1 police officer is about $150,000 hit to the budget. Thank you. But your point's well taken.
Thank you, Acting Chief. It's just coming from a place of passion for, being a former police officer myself. So I do respect everything that you guys do for us. and, the community as well. So looking out for their interests as well, in respect that they put their lives on the line. And nothing felt more close to home than what the events that took place this year in all areas of this province and overall. And it can come at any time. So, anything that we could do to try to make that statement home and make people come home and let them come home and make us feel safe in our homes as well. It's priceless when it really comes down to it. So I just wanted to make that pushback.
Yep.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for your comments. And I'm looking at the budget. We put 9 officers on the road, so 4 coming next year, the year after, if that's what their plan. And I certainly will sit there and support the board. I heard it in our community too, that policing is a priority for our community, and I understand your passion for that. And I certainly think that everybody has that same passion. Growth has been rough over the past couple of years for this community, especially with the crime we've not seen here in the past. We're now seeing the crime come from the GTA North. So we're going to have to address that. And I agree, the 80% reactive is not where we want to be. We want to be more proactive if we get more proactive.
Not where I want to be either.
No, I don't think anybody wants to. More proactive reduces crime in the end, and we hope to be able to pull that off. So as a new member of the board, I certainly will keep those comments in my mind and make sure that I address that as we move forward with a proactive approach rather than a reactive. So all right. Thank you again. Thank you very much. We appreciate what you do. Our condolences to the service, and thank you, gentlemen, for standing tall and proud for our community. So appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Have a great night and Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
All right. We'll give them a minute to gather their things. And then we'll move into open forums next, correct? Oh, sorry. Yes. You're right. My computer went black, so I forgot. And I'll read it off here. Then there's recommendation that the presentation of the of Acting Chief John Van Dyke and Chair Chris Garapi regarding the 2023 police services budget be received. May I have a mover and a second for that, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Sandu, seconded by Councillor Harper. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Now moving to open forum, correct? Let me close this out and I'll get back to my All right, tonight we have one open forum. It is Earl Gillespie, and he's briefing us on the Police Services Board budget, please. You're okay with that? All right, we'll stroke it. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're moving past that. We're on to section 10. Allow me to go through my computer here, if you don't mind. So it's adoption of the committee of whole minutes. I have a recommendation here that the committee of whole recommendation COW 2022-84 to COW 2022-91 be approved, and the minutes of the committee of whole meeting dated December 6th, 2022 be adopted as printed. Mover seconder, moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Giordano. Questions or concerns? Anybody want to pull anything for further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. We will move into 10.2. Adoption of council minutes. I have a recommendation here that the minutes of the regular council meeting dated December 6, 2022 be adopted as printed. Mover and second for this, please. By Councillor Scott, seconded by, we have to have some hands, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Questions or concerns with the minutes? As you know, the Deputy Mayor brought up some comments about the minutes, so they were corrected. There was an error. They were referring to, that's the 6th, right? You brought up that? Yeah, it was just a typo error. So it's been corrected. All right. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Minutes of I have another motion. So the minutes of the special meeting of council dated November 23rd and 24th of 2022 be adopted as printed. Questions or concerns with these minutes? May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Harper, seconded by Councillor Dehaney. Questions or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving into correspondence. There is no correspondence. We're now into section 12, staff reports. I have 12.1. Corporate services. Parking concerns on Northgate. So I will put a I will put the motion on the floor and then we'll talk, we'll discuss, and then we can come with an option of some sort. So I will motion it that report COR 2022-24 entitled Parking Concerns, Northgate Avenue be received for information, and that the committee of whole authorize staff to prepare a bylaw amendment to give effect to the on-street parking restrictions detailed in option. And we'll leave it at that. So I'll have a mover and a second to put this on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Dehaney, seconded by Councillor Harper. Questions or comments with the report? Councillor Harper, please. Floor is yours.
Okay, Northgate, huge staple in our community and one of the major roads in Bradford. And with this report, I like that the complainant has come back to us. Had an issue back in 2019 as well, and then it was pushed over. There's a lot more areas of concern happening on Northgate than I'm sure council from the past are really aware of the issues on Northgate and have done their best to try to mitigate that. I think we could do a lot better in just hammering out just one issue here on a complaint, because I know just in this area alone, there is several complaints. So I would like to, and I'll put the motion or amendment now. That's my time to speak, and then the rest probably can go ahead. But I'd like amendment to defer to the traffic committee. Okay, and I would like that in the meantime that they do send out the survey to the people. A lot of the times that I'm really going to stand up for the people to give them their voice, and that they can build their trust back here with the council in our community and allow us to actually give the change and the proper proactive approaches to traffic safety that we really have all stepped up and said that is a priority for us as well in this term. That being said, Northgate's residents in this report, it said there was 2,000 as an average of drivers a day, but I really feel that number is really low and didn't give it the actual due diligence of the weight that it could be up to almost 4,000 people a day on that road at times. So, and even that being said, 2,000 a day on a street like this, it's not an arterial road, is concerning, because when do these residents here in Northgate actually get to feel safe in their area, get to feel safe in their community? Their kids, their families, they grew up with this and have been dealing with this. So I really feel that we need to give it the weight. And that's why I've made the motion and amendment, as I passionately brought forward, to bring it to the traffic committee so that we can give proper easement to the residents in this area.
All right, thank you for that. And I appreciate that. And at this time, we don't have a traffic committee set up, but I certainly would say that we refer it back until we set up our committees maybe and deal with it then, because I agree with you. I think this has to be maybe addressed a little further. I think there's more options there. When I spoke to the resident of that area, it's a tough situation. It's on a curve, so I think it takes a little bit more. And I do want to hear from the residents. I think that's what your concern is, that we have to hear from residents there, and we can maybe come up with a solution that works for everybody. As we know, traffic is our number one issue this council has had for past term. That's what we campaigned. We've seen that the traffic throughout their community is a big one. So I would like to make sure that we get these correct right from the start. So if everybody's okay with it, Madam Chair, do we just refer, not Chair, no, Madam Clerk, sorry. She was in a chair. Okay, we just refer back to staff for now until we, how do we want to do this? I'll leave it to your
I think a motion to refer to traffic, realizing that the traffic committee has not yet been established, or if you want to postpone it until the next available, either motion will sort of put it on the books until it can be considered by that committee or a similar committee of council, that kind of thing. We can bring it back if the traffic committee is not constituted after your strategic planning session, or it takes a different form. We can bring it to that appropriate committee.
So you're fine if we just put a postponement on it?
Absolutely. Are we still able to send out the survey for the people, for the residents in that area as well then? Or is that a separate motion that I have to?
No, it's in the report that talks about doing it. I think you can sit with manager, Brent Lee, manager for bylaw, and see what his thoughts are. And then when we come back with this report, then I think we can push forward to say what, how you want to do it and how you want to process that.
Okay.
If you're okay with that. So we'll just do a postponement and then
Postpone it?
have a meeting with Brent and see if what the thoughts are for that.
Either way works, I believe, yeah.
So we have a mover, we have an amendment to the, so it's just a new, can we just call it a new motion? No, have to call it amendment, eh?
No, it's not an amendment. It's a motion to refer it to the traffic committee or to be considered by the next available committee.
Okay.
It takes precedence to the main motion, actually. So the main motion would die, and that the council will be voting on that motion to refer or postpone.
Okay. Second by Councillor Scott then. So we're good with it. So it's a motion to refer it to the next committee or traffic committee or the next opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay, we're all good with it then? So all in favor? Carried. Thank you. We will move on to 12.2. Sorry, just let me close my computer up. 12.2 Financial Services, the 2023 interim tax bylaw. I have a motion on the floor. So that report FIN 2022-17 entitled 2023 interim tax bylaw be received for information, and the council adopt the 2023 interim tax bylaw levy bylaw. Mover second to put this on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Kike, seconded by Councillor Dehaney. Now, I was going to invite our finance director of finance up to comment on this bylaw. Is it okay if we invite him up to comment? So can I ask Ian, if you come up and just give a little direction on the interim bylaw? I know you did some legwork today, and it would be nice to have just a small understanding of it so the public understands it and we all understand it. And we just couldn't have you sit here all night doing nothing.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the report and bylaw that's in front of council tonight is something that is before council every year on or about this time. So it's the tool that's afforded to the municipalities by the Municipal Act to generate some bills, to bring some cash flow in the municipality, to be able to afford to run the business and pay the bills until such a time that budgets are passed and the municipality is in a position that to issue final property tax bills after completing the final property tax calculations. So this is the amounts that are collected, they are statutorily limited to be 50% of what was billed in the previous calendar year. So basically whatever was billed last year, the bill is 50% of that, and it's due in two installments of approximately equal amounts at the end of February and end of April. So this is a standard annual item that the council deals with, and it's a tool afforded to us to make sure we still have some cash coming in. And the amounts that are collected through the interim billing are deducted from the final bill. So you could consider it as a down payment or a deposit on your ultimate tax bill for 2023.
Okay, and the last one is our creditors require this bylaw so that you can access that funds if needed. Am I correct in saying that?
Your Worship, I believe now you're referring to the temporary borrowing bylaw, which is coming up in a couple items on the agenda.
I missed that. Sorry. I mixed the two bylaws up. Okay. Sorry. So is everybody good with the interim bylaw? We understand it? Any questions for our director? Chance to say Merry Christmas to him if you want.
Merry Christmas.
All right. Thank you, Ian. Appreciate that. So if we're all good, all in favor. I have a mover and seconder, correct, for this? Okay. All in favor? Thank you. And yeah, you might as well stay right there. On to 12.3. Financial services again, and this one is our October 31st, 2022 financial results. I'll put the motion on the floor. So that report FIN 2022-19 entitled October 31st, 2022 financial results be received for information, and the council draw the balance of the Bond Head Downtown Revitalization Reserves, 12,900, to fund the Bond Head Heritage Conservation District, the HCD project, instead of using funds from the Capital Expenditure Reserve. Mover and second to put this on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sandu, seconded by Councillor Dehaney. Questions or concerns? Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few comments. I'll start with the Bond Head Heritage Conservation District. That is a process council's already approved and was going to pay for through grants and one of our main reserves. over the past few months, this very small, essentially stagnant bond head reserve, which has been on our books for quite some time, too small to really do anything meaningful on a capital side. I had made the suggestion that we should put it against a portion of the Heritage Conservation District to help pay that bill, rather than the bigger reserve that we actually use for capital projects. I thought that was some simple housekeeping to preserve the larger reserve for capital projects, some of which Councillor Verkuyk and Councillor Ferragini could happily spend in bond head. A few more comments. Councillor Dykey and I were very happy to see, coming out of last year's budget, the overall reduction in bank and transaction fees. When it's netted out across the various departments, I think driven by corporate and community services, we have saved about $10,000 to date on our bank and transaction fees. So rationalizing those systems was a small but useful efficiency. And then it looks like we're in a good position where if you factor in the timing of when revenue is received versus when bills are paid, we're still looking to come somewhere just better than a balanced budget. We'll wait to see whether that's a big surplus or a small one, but we're on the right side of the ledger there. And then my final comment is I want us to be able to look at the capital projects that are on budget or under budget, how that reinvests along with any potential surplus into reserves in the new year. But also the province has again essentially doubled the OSIF that we rely on for a lot of our roads and infrastructure projects. It's slightly less than it was last year, but it's still about 1.2 million more, I believe, than it was in 2020. So we're in good shape in that regard, and I think we're gonna need it when it comes to all the capital projects that residents expect, and how we work to sequence the delivery that residents know they're entitled to in terms of their roads and other community assets that need renewal. So that capital side of the equation is in good shape, thanks in large part to that OSIF grant.
Yes, well said. There was some great savings in this budget, and we're looking at it. We're on schedule to meet a net positive budget. So it's always good to see that. We appreciate when staff work hard to find even the smallest savings. You know, when you're talking in the dollar here, dollar there, it adds up. And when you do it over a year, it adds up to, like you say, to $10,000. So it works out to be something positive for the residents. So there's nothing in this report that really is shocking to staff. They see it online, and we're like you say, like Councillor Scott said, we're on the positive side of the business. So we're good with that, and our capital projects moving forward. So any further comments or questions on this one? We wait to see the final result at the end of the year. All right, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Moving on to I think 12.4, financial services temporary borrowing bylaw. This is one where I jumped ahead. So you're already ready for that question, right? I took the surprise out of it. That report, FIN 2022-18, entitled 2023 Temporary Borrowing Bylaw, be received for information and that the 2023 Temporary Borrowing Bylaw be adopted. Mover second to put this on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Harper, seconded by Councillor Verkuyk. Questions or concerns with this one? Any further comments on the temporary borrowing bylaw? We understand it's just a necessity and it's needed. The financial, well, I'll let you explain that.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Municipal Act requires that all borrowings of the municipality be, whether it be temporary or long-term, be approved by council. So that's the purpose of this report, because the town does have a revolving line of credit facility with our banking services provider that's available should it be needed. Now, the municipality hasn't needed it in a number of years, but it is there should our cash flows require us to utilize it. So that's the purpose of this report, is to seek approval to, if needed, we're able to use it over the next 365 days. But as mentioned, I'm not anticipating requiring it this year, and we have not required to dip into it or utilize it in the last number of years either.
Thank you. For any questions or comments then? Seeing none, moving right along. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Director. And will you be in tomorrow? I was going to come over to I'll stop by to wish everybody Merry Christmas. Thanks. See you tomorrow. On to 12.5. 12.5, it is community services, plant C aeration grid replacement. Report COM 2022-36 entitled Plant C aeration grid replacement be received for information and approval. I have a mover seconder, please put this on the floor. Moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Harper. Question concerns with this one? This is an aeration system in plant C that we need. It's an emergency repair. It's the parts are non-replaceable anymore, so. Okay, Councillor Harper.
My only question when it's asking for us, and I understand the need for the facility to be upgraded and what it does. The information received was greatly appreciated. Does this hinder our capabilities in the budget moving forward? Because this was proposed to be done 2024. Now it's a 2-year earlier proposal, or a year earlier, I believe, or maybe a year or two. Will that hinder us in budget moving forward? 1 or 2.
Tony, want to come up or?
Flip a coin.
He's behind the table, so he's letting you come up today. And has everybody met Tony? You want
Hi,
to?
Tony.
Tony is our manager of our wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, I don't anticipate it hurting the reserves that much. So that $2 million, that's what it could potentially hit. I am going to try and explore other options within the procurement process, see if we can keep the cost down and then just keep that money in the reserves for other ongoing capital projects. But there is potential for it. It could touch that $2 million.
When you gave the proposal a couple of years ago, you said it would last to a certain number of years. Was there a certain factor that caused it to cut out or drop down?
Yeah, so it's come down to a poor manufacturing. I've chased after the original manufacturer of this back a couple of years ago. We've been just trying to limp it through and for another year. But it's to the point we've had to make some emergency patch repairs, and yeah, we can't really push it too much longer. The goal is to have this tendered and awarded ready for the springtime.
Thank you very much.
Further questions, Councillor Giordano?
And Tony Warren, thanks. Quick question. How much of this needs to be out of the $2 million needs to be required immediately versus how much can be deferred later down the road? Is there any efficiencies in spreading it out, or are we basically allocating the full cost right away?
Yes. So unfortunately, the first part is going to be the actual engineering behind it. So there's the cost occurred with that, and then all the ministry documentation, and then it's just materials and labor beyond that. So we can't really push it out, and so it's kind of a one lump sum thing. We're kind of hoping to have the project done within a couple months.
So based on the other supplier having an issue with manufacturing, what can we do to warranty or ensure our manufacturing on whatever we're going to be doing and our material moving forward? This doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the new technology that we're going to go to, I've had a lot of experience with it in the past. Their disc diffuser. They say 10 plus years. In all reality, I've seen over 20-year life cycle on these and then some. So I don't anticipate it being an issue, and we are going to look to make sure that we follow with a good company with a good reputation and a solid background and warranty period.
And we can't recover any, warranty issues from the previous.
No, I tried that route. Unfortunately, we couldn't get anything from them. And we had 2 other suppliers that had a similar product, but they no longer carry it because they're experiencing issues as well.
Great question. Councillor Scott.
So I'm just hoping you can, I'm going to say my understanding, and I hope you can clarify it, and hopefully that it's also clarification for everyone as well. We're funding this replacement earlier than anticipated through the dedicated wastewater reserve, which is funded by wastewater fees, not the general tax levy or even the special capital levy. So it is solely impacting the wastewater department, and in there it's solely impacting the wastewater reserves, which are purpose built for a rainy day or a unanticipated need, right?
Yeah,
Am I getting that right?
That's 100% correct. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, all wastewater funding is provided through the user fee and it's all covered from that. So it's not a tax hit. Councillor McGee.
Yeah, just, was there any like failure mode analysis on the system that failed? Like, was it material of construction?
So that's what it appears to be. Essentially, so it's essentially a rubber sock with thousands of these tiny perforated like needle size holes. And essentially there's a slit that's just opening up right along one line. And the manufacturers, they can't guarantee what's caused it. But we know it's definitely been from a manufacturing, because there's actually a portion of it that hasn't failed. So it was almost two separate batches. Yes. But yeah, we can't really do anything about it at this point.
Yeah, good question. But that's sometimes that's the inferior products you purchase. I know in instrumentation, lots of times when we bought when we bought valves, they were already obsolete. Coming off the shelf, they're obsolete. So that's the way the instrument world works at times. You're buying inferior products at times, but it comes from all over the world. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
On to. Thank you, Tony, and Merry Christmas. Development Engineering Services 12.6, application for variance from signed bylaw 2011-23 at 121 Bridge Street. We have a, oops, no, hang on, I missed it. I have a motion here, sorry, I got ahead of myself. That report DS 2022-71 entitled application for variance from signed by law 2011-23 at 121 Bridge Street dated December 20th, 2022 be received. And the council approved the requested variance from the requirements of section 5.13 of signed by law 2011-23 to permit the installation of a new third-party electronic static copy wall sign with a setback of 6.4 meters, 21 feet from an existing third-party electronic wall sign on the same wall, and that council approved the requested variance from the requirements of clause 2 of schedule L of the signed bylaw 2011-23 to permit of the installation of an additional wall sign, which will increase the total signage area to 22% of the wall area. Mover second, put this on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Duhaney. Questions, Councillor Scott?
I'm going to make my comment about this one and the next one. It's the same company. It's also both are in Ward 2, my ward. I've said this before when this same company has come forward with similar requests. I'm pretty libertarian about these kind of things. If no one's actually bothered by a company doing their product, doing their service, I don't really see a role for the municipality to create more red tape. And in this case, the business, I circulated his email to council about how the revenue from the existing sign on Bridge Street has funded $20,000 worth of roof repairs, and the anticipated revenues, if we approve the second sign, would finalize that building's refurbishment by painting the entire facade, which would complete from end to end, where the first facade was painted and the other end has the brand new Midas shop that I hope will do a ribbon cutting for in the new year. So it's a company that's using its revenue from advertising to put back into the building stock. I know the second item, the next report, gets us further into the downtown rather than on an arterial road. And notwithstanding my libertarian instincts on this kind of thing and red tape, I do think in the downtown we have to be a little more careful about the aesthetics and the urban design guidelines. But the property in question on that second report, it actually is a pretty clear one-to-one precedent to the existing sign over on Benjamin Moore on the other end of the downtown. So I don't see any problem there. So apologies for combining comments on two reports, but I think the comments I've made apply to both equally.
Thank you. Yeah. Excellent. Councillor Harper.
I have a question. Are we able to have the creator come up and answer a question?
Yeah, we could ask them to come up, and because we don't have
Staff?
oh,
Staff?
Staff's here, right?
Ah.
Sorry, I have, you're, sorry, not, no, staff. Sorry,
Staff here? Okay, perfect.
that's,
Staff, thank you. So my question, and I understand red tape, not to impact that, but also this being an arterial road for this one. What's the impact in regards to this sign is going to be an electrical sign? And it's some confusion in there. Maybe you can clarify for me the static changing of the actual design, how long in between frequencies of changing of the templates, and that probably will steer me to my next question. So if you could clarify that for me.
who would like to answer that? So we have Sarah and Lillian at the table. We'll introduce them. They work in at Willie's department, right? In bylaw, or not bylaw, building department. So sorry.
That's correct. Yeah, my name is Sarah Oettinger. I'm a building inspector with the building division. Thank you, Councillor Harper, for your question. So to answer the question, there is a definition of electronic static copy within the staff report. So it means the sign copy displayed utilizing electronic screens, televisions, computer video monitors, liquid crystal displays, light emitting dial displays, or any other similar to electronic technology where the sign copy is fixed for a set period of time. There is.
Yeah, so my question was, what's the set period of time between changing?
Is that? One moment, we'll have a look through the. Okay.
That's me. There we go.
Thanks. Sorry, it's further on in the definition of for the sign bylaw, it indicates that the message duration is not less than 5 seconds, and then the transition to the next image can't be any more than 1 second.
That will lead me to my next question then. That being said, 2 of those signs, they're on a major arterial road. What's the distracted driving impact factor? Then should there be a study suggested here, or was there one done based on the rate of change on these signs? Because now we're putting 2 signs there that will change sporadically every 5 seconds based on that time.
Thank you for your additional question. So there was no traffic impact study complete as part of their variance application. Yeah.
Sure, thank you. So when the bylaw was initially developed and then updated a couple of years ago to reflect some of the newer technologies, display technologies for advertisements, that's where these stands were contemplated and developed in accordance with industry standards that were emerging at the time. So we have not required individual applicants to assess distracted driver impacts, things of that nature, because we built the standards with those thoughts in mind. At the moment, I couldn't turn you to the exact documentation for that, but we could follow up and provide that to council.
So you're okay with a follow-up after on that question?
Yes, I'm okay with the follow-up. I think that leads me to, my point then, that maybe this and the other one as well, the next one, be put deferred till we actually build a precedent or a standard then for the town regarding electronic signs. That way it may be something that we look at it putting in as a precedent.
So let me get that right. You're asking for a deferral on this? Are you asking for a deferral? Or you're saying we look at it down the road like we, because if you're asking for a deferral, we can't debate deferrals. So are you asking for a deferral? Or are you just saying that, we should look into that as a design standard later on?
I think, because there's no information here to support that, I think we should defer it. I'm asking for a deferral. I mean, it is everyone's opinion as well. That's mine, based on if we're getting into this factors of downtown and lighting it up and whatnot. It could be a factor that's what's overlooked or may impact us, or it could leave us in a position. It's something to consider, and I'll put it out there.
Let me refer to the clerk then. If a deferral comes on the table,
Sorry, I was trying to look up the motions.
yeah, I
Is this
just,
getting referred back to staff for a report? Is that the request on standards? I heard he wants to defer
he's
this
asking
until
to
we have
defer this report. Yeah,
until
defer
we
this.
have standards. So I believe it's referred
Right.
back to staff to come back with standards for lighting with respect to traffic impacts and safety.
So we do have standards now, but you're talking about a distraction. You're talking about a driver distraction, and we do have standards within our bylaw already. Does this meet the standards? Obviously it met it enough because Willie has okayed. He's given us a recommendation stating that it's fine to go forward. So he's comfortable with the standard he's got in there now. You're talking about looking at distracted driving or adding to the standard, which we could do. We could certainly do in the future. And I think it's something we need to look at in the future. I understand. I'm prepared. If you want to defer this now, then I got to call a vote on a deferral. You don't get to debate it. You need a seconder for deferral.
We need a seconder first. It is debatable, but I believe.
It's debatable?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I didn't realize that.
Whether or not you want to defer. Just a heads up with respect to the sign bylaw, we know there's been several, we do have to look at our sign bylaw and what's in it and what gets regulated. I believe a sort of a fulsome review is due in the next year or two to come up and look at some of those suggestions as these are coming up one off. I understand councillors' concern if they keep coming off, are they having a bigger effect than we really think about it? When the electronic sign amendments were made to the sign bylaw, we did look at sort of standards of electronic signs out there. So I do believe they kind of meet kind of the expectations of the industry. Whether or not there's an actual sign or sort of standard about safety, I'm not sure that there is, but certainly we could look at that as part of our review of the sign bylaw. And do we need to add anything in about traffic distraction impacts?
Okay, so I'm going to go with your deferral right now. I need a seconder to put that on the floor. Okay, it's seconded. We can debate this now. So we'll debate this. So I'll defer to others to debate first. I will comment after. So I will go with right now. I haven't had the deputy mayor do it. I'll go with Giordano, Mr. Councilor Giordano, and then I'll come back to the side of the table. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think I understand the intent of Councillor Harper. But when we first had application of this type for our council, I recall us going back and looking into other municipalities. Like if I go to downtown, I go to bigger cities or other towns, they're lit up. And when I see these kind of signs, to me, they're encouraging small businesses, local businesses. I find them safe. I don't find them distracting, but not to say that they're not. We see it all over. We see it. Old Las Vegas is like this. Not to say that this is it, but you go to Toronto, you go to Richmond Hill, you go to 400. It's messaging. It's digital messaging. We're coming to the age of digital messaging. I think what we can do is get back to our staff and let them know what our intentions are and start exploring. But to hold someone back, where we had precedent, where we approved these type, I don't think it's being responsible or fair to the business that's bringing the application forward.
Thank you for those comments. Councilor Giordano.
Thank you. So as somebody that has spent many, many years in marketing and advertising, out of home and everything else, when I look at this particular application for off Bridge Street, I don't see the major concerns. I believe that the value added that they bring back to the building and everything else with their business model makes a lot of sense. But I'll kind of do a little bit similar to what Councillor Scott did, which was along the lines of the downtown core area. The issue I have is, I think maybe to piggyback off of Councillor Harper, some sort of design guidelines for digital signage in the downtown core, or any area. I think we need to revisit that and set the standards and the tones for that. Where I have an issue is the dental office that was in the downtown area had a very luminous sign that a lot of residents were complaining about. When we are in the movie night in the park and everything else, all the bright digital signage around there actually distracts and it takes away from the event space that can be in that space as well. So I think we need to be mindful about where we place digital signage. The arterial roads and, in heavy traffic areas, great, sure, no problem. But once we start putting them onto our main corridor, I'd like to revisit that, or actually set some standards for that, and really think about it as short-term and long-term.
Excellent, thank you. I'll ask Councillor Verkuyk.
Yeah, I get the libertarian viewpoint, but then why do we have a sign bylaw? So and then we have variances all over the place, and then we compare, oh, we have it looks like this over here, so let's do it over here, and all of a sudden you've got no bylaw at all. I might be okay with this one on Bridge Street because it's not going to affect the area, but I'm really hesitant on the downtown core, and I'm addressing the second one again. So yeah, I just don't think we should just say allow a variance because another property has something similar, because then there's just no rules at all.
Thank you, Councillor Scott.
So just very briefly on the deferral, and I guess Councillor Verkuyck's last comments, we want to operate a rational and reasonable, and I mean that in the legal sense, not the mental sense, a rational and reasonable business climate that is governed by a rule of law, precedent, and consistency. And so I completely understand Councillor Harper's intent, but I don't think deferring this particular application is the right way to do it. I think reviewing the sign bylaw cohesively as a whole is the proper way to go, and it shouldn't impede this application or these two applications before us tonight. So I'm not in favor of the deferral.
So I'm going to further comment, and I was going to get to these types of comments and our second sign variance, because I felt that, yeah, we should probably do what you are talking about, and that's have a discussion about how we want our downtown to look in the future. I didn't see these two signs as being things I had to stop today, because I felt that the Bridge Street, the precedent's already there. It's a static sign. It's got no impact to driver distraction in my mind. The downtown one is there. It's at the far end of downtown. I don't think it does anything other than help out local business downtown, because that's what that sign is going to generate. It is at a reduced cost for our local business in the downtown core to advertise, and advertising for every business is pretty expensive. So this sign and the one at the Benjamin Moore are kind of at the opposite ends, and I didn't think this was going to really impact our downtown and impact our overall look. So I was going to support the two signs tonight, but at the same time, ask the staff review the sign bylaw, put the digital signs on hold until we get a better handle on what we want to look in our as our downtown. So when we do our design guidelines. So I'm not in support of the deferral either tonight. I would prefer. So I will give the deputy mayor last comment, and if Councillor Dehaney wants to, but everybody else had comments, we'll let you close with your last comment. So we'll go this way, and then Councillor Dehaney, if you want to say something, fine. If not, don't worry, I'll go over there. Deputy Mayor.
Just to have a question. I know Brent Lee's not here. Councillor Giordano made a comment that there was complaints from residents, because as a councillor, I have not heard a single complaint. Was there a complaint ever filed with bylaw with these signs?
I do know that there was complaints about the sign, the dentistry sign being too bright. The last amendment to the sign bylaw puts a maximum lumens and requires electronic signs to have monitoring the lumens from those signs and to reduce them after certain hours. I can't tell you off the top of my head what's happened from those complaints. I haven't heard anything recently with respect to that sign. I do believe it was maybe amended or modified slightly after we did the last amendment to the adding specifically the electronic sign provisions. And there are some provisions in the sign bylaw with respect to lumens.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. So actually, I was thinking about that sign because next week is my birthday and I was planning to have my face on that side. So, but I understand what Councillor Harper is saying. And of course, it does not hurt if we actually review the bylaws where electrical signs are concerned, right? And that will actually give maybe there are more concerns. Maybe there are people that are out there who have concerns about it, right? So at least it gives them more satisfaction that, hey, this is safe. So I think it does not hurt us reviewing the bylaws where that is concerned. But to say, forget about it, you know what I mean? I don't think so. I think we should just look more into it and just cover, of course, our tracks, making sure that community is safe. And my face will be on that next week.
Okay, so I'm going to give the last comment to Councillor Harper, and then we'll call the vote on the deferral.
Well, I opened up the can right there for sure. And actually it's healthy to have that debate. I agreed with the points that you all brought forward as well. The designing, the variants, like zigzagging, and where do we put the steps on it? And then going back to actually, delivering what the bylaw should look like and reviewing it. My onus was not to stop the production of a business here, but to just basically look out for, the impact and the actual precedents for moving forward. So I appreciate and thank you guys for the comments. It's great to hear it. So.
Well, that's what it's all about, debate, and we appreciate your comments, and that I think it was a good comment and a good debate. So we appreciate that too. So I will call the vote on the deferral. So all in favor of deferring report 12.6. So the application for variance of signed bylaw 2011-23 at 121 Bridge Street. All in favor of the deferral.
So wait, deferral is only on the Bridge Street location?
We're only doing one right now.
And then we can move to the next one after?
Move to the next one after. This is just on this report here. So all in favor of deferral. Okay, all opposed to deferral? Carried. Okay, so now we'll go back to the actual recommendation. We've had discussion, so we can open up discussion further if you'd like. I think everybody's had a great discussion around the table about what our feelings are on this, and I think on the next one on the variance, I think we can carry on with that quick discussion to talk about how we want to look at that in our future downtown. So if we're all good with that, I will call the vote on the original motion as written. All right, do I need to reread it? If somebody wants me to reread it, I can. It's okay. The report DS 2022-71 entitled variance of the application for variance of signed bylaw 2011-23 at 121 Bridge Street dated December 2022 be received, and the council approve the requested variance from the requirements of section 513 of the signed bylaw 2011-23 to permit the installation of a third-party electronic static copy wall sign with a setback of 6.4 meters from existing third-party electronic wall sign on the same wall, and that council approved the requested variance for the requirements of clause 2 of schedule L of the sign bylaw 2011-23 to permit the installation of an additional wall sign, which will increase the total signage area to 22% of the wall area. So all in favor as written. Thank you. Carried. All opposed? Opposed. Thank you. That was carried. All right. Thank you, folks. That was great. Let's move on to, I think we're on to 12.7, development engineering, application for variance from the signed bylaw 2011-23 at 105 Holland Street East. I have another motion that I'll put on the floor, and if you ladies will hang around for a bit, we'll use your expertise again in this one if any more questions come up. Thank you for being patient with us. That report DS 2022-70 entitled application for variance from signed bylaw 2011-23 for 105 Holland Street East dated December 2022 be received, and the council approved the requested variance from the requirements of section 1C1 or CI of schedule E of the signed bylaw 2011-23 to allow a height of 5.74 meters, and the council approved the requested variance from the requirements of section 1B of schedule E of the signed bylaw 2011-23 to allow a sign face area of 14.6 square meters total of both sides, and the council approved the requested variance from the requirements of section 512 of the signed bylaw 2011-23 to permit the display of both first party and third party advertisements. That council approved the requested variance from the requirements of section 1D2 of the signed bylaw 2011-23 to allow a setback of 1.52 meters from the front lot line. Mover second to put this on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sandu. Questions or concerns with this one? Now, we can go, Mr. Verkuyk, Councillor Verkuyk.
Yeah, my concern is this is downtown. If you'd say it's outside or not quite down, it's downtown. It's between the GO station and Simcoe. We want this to be high intense, like we want to increase the intensity. We want more people to live here because it's close to the GO train. And I just don't think this sign, just because there's a sign by Benjamin Moore, doesn't really justify it. And I don't think we need it. If they want to put a sign up that doesn't require a variance, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Further comments or questions on this one? Yes, Councillor Giordano.
So as I mentioned before, I can't. I agree with Councillor over there. We just need to put a sign that's existing until we decide what we're going to do with our bylaw. I do feel, however, that when we review it, not just the bylaw, but our downtown core area, I think we can actually integrate digital signage into our, let's call it our infrastructure. And we can use it for not only their business purposes, which is advertising, but also for town messaging and everything else. But it requires a greater understanding of how we're going to treat it, how we're going to look at it. And so I don't know if I need to put the motion or to echo what Councillor Harper did on the last one, but to motion to defer this until we look at whatever strategic sign bylaw we want to put in place. And I think this can actually work with our strategic planning as well, because we can actually integrate digital signage into certain community spaces.
The comments. So you're putting a deferral on the table. So I know we have a seconder over here, seconded by Councillor Harper. Any further questions moving forward? Councillor Scott.
I'll just shoehorn this comment in. I will vote against the deferral. I think we have to treat businesses consistently and rationally, and not approving a business based on location or any other factor is just not how we do business in a country like this. We have to be consistent and rational. There are precedents that we can find in the downtown, including closer to the Four Corners than this sign, including the Benjamin Moore property that I'd already referenced. And I don't think it's fair to the business owner of the advertising, or especially the business owner who would host the sign, to say in the absence of a bylaw change that reflects what council may or may not want the future bylaw to say, that we're going to discriminate between businesses based on arbitrary characteristics. I think we have to be consistent and fair.
Councillor Harper.
I think this one, there's two comparable signs that show two different types of signs. So are they comparable at all? And when you say, Councillor Scott, treat business rational, consistent, this business asked for a variance on the Benjamin Moore one, and now wants to leverage that variance to put this sign here and ask for another variance as well. So I am in favor with Councillor Giordano there, and that we have to defer and put up the standards for our downtown. So it's being fair to all future prospects and setting that precedent that will actually help grow our downtown. I mean, like, this town is big town feel, small town charm in our, but at what point, when we keep creating all these lights and stuff, do we lose that charm? So I agree with Councillor Verkuyk. If the variance was not there, then I would be for it. But again, at what point do we keep pushing back on variance after variance after variance?
Okay, thank you. Any further comments in regards to this deferral? Councillor Giordano.
So the only thing I would say is I know that there was we're using the Benjamin Moore as a leverage, but what happens if the Benjamin Moore maybe was a mistake? So I'm not saying to change our standards or to not set precedent that's already been set, but maybe we can revisit what the standards were, and we can revisit it moving forward, so we can hit we can work with businesses a lot easier and more effectively moving forward. And I feel like there's even greater opportunity for businesses like this if we go ahead and do this. So I don't think we're setting a bad business precedent. I think we're actually setting a better business precedent.
All right, thank you on that. And so like we said before, we would talk about this one and we had that discussion about the signs, the digital signs out there. And we said that we want to get this back to staff. We want to certainly have staff review our digital sign process so that we can get it down for our downtown core. So I'm more than happy to get this back to staff. I too believe that, you know what, you got to treat them equally. And this meets a variance. We do with variances all the time. They have used a sign that they had had the past. They had the Benjamin Moore sign, but it does meet the variance, and we have variances all the time that we deal with this in this business. So I'm going to sit here and support the application as is, but I do again want to refer this to staff to say, let's look this over for our downtown core. I definitely don't want this the downtown filled with digital signs all over the place. But we're not there today because we have the bylaw that says that the variances can be done, and we have our staff to give a report as to why the variance can be done. So we're going to go to a vote then. I see Councillor Dehaney left. So on the deferral, that's going to, okay. So Councillor Dehaney left right now. So if there's any further comments, I let you have, I was going to let you have the last comment because it's your deferral. You're finished because you spoke twice. Okay. So I'll call the vote on deferral. All in favor of deferral of this report? And opposed? So it's a tie. It's defeated. Yeah, the deferral is defeated when it's a tie. Okay, so we're going to go back to the original motion.
Call the question.
Call the question? Yeah. On the motion?
Yeah, we've debated minor time variances for longer than we spent on some development applications. I call the question.
Okay. All right. We'll call the question. 12.7. Do I need to read it again? You know what's going to happen. Okay. All in favor of 12.7 as written? And opposed? Defeated. It's defeated. It's lost. So, all right. So we're nowhere with that one. We went from 100 to 0. Okay, we'll move on to that's defeated. So we don't have that one passed. We'll move on. The question was called. It's done. Request your staff report. We're at 13. Mr. Harper.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like the staff report to request to bring back or complete a new report on what to do or ideas on what to do with the existing 1.5 acres of land at 177 Church Street. The vacant lands, sorry. I know that it was asked before by an existing or another counselor in the past. So I would like to either have that brought back or a new one being done to show us what to do with the vacant areas of that land there. I have 2 others after.
All right. We need for staff reports, we don't need a seconder. We just need a vote on it. Oh, we need a seconder. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Seconder on that request. Anybody? No, Giordano. Councilor Giordano. Okay. On that, then all in favor of that request. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. We are on to no further staff reports, correct? Oh, one more. Okay.
Please.
Sorry. Councilor Harper, go ahead.
I'd like the staff report on the impact in upgrading the school zones from a 40-kilometer zone to a 30-kilometer zone, increasing the surrounding community safety zones with increased speed mitigations to improve safety and the different levels of mitigations that can be used in each school zone in all of Bradford.
Okay.
Can you repeat that? I'd like an impact in upgrading impact study, our staff report, what the impact would be on the school zones from going from a 40-kilometer an hour to a 30-kilometer an hour, increasing the surrounding community safety zones with increased speed mitigations to improve the safety and the different levels or mitigations that can be used in each school area of all of Bradford.
That's a pretty in-depth report. That's did you not want to wait for the strategic plan to go through that process to see how that transpired, or? That's a pretty in-depth report. You're talking about redoing the whole town for traffic, and I don't disagree with you, but okay, because that the more reports we ask for, the more time our staff are not working on the things we want to get done in the future. So
I appreciate that, Mayor, and I think that this one is more for a long-term, a look about. So
Okay.
I don't think this is a quick town field. This thing is circumferencing all of Bradford and making Bradford safer for everyone. And that, it's not something that's going to happen right away. That's
no,
why
I
I'm
agree.
asking for that
That's
request. So.
that's not going to happen right away. The report will be a while, I'm sure, because it's got quite an impact to the whole community. So okay, that's fine. We have a mover and a seconder for that then. Seconded by Councillor Scott. All in favor of that report? Oh, you can comment on it. Go ahead. Yeah, well, comment first, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that if we go to 30, I would like to see staff also look at making it variable so that outside of school hours, it goes back to 40. To include that comment and
So a variable speed limit in the school zones when there's no school. Okay. Okay, that's it. Okay, so that's added into the staff report. So we're going to go back to, we had the mover seconder, correct? I had that. Okay. And all in favor of that report? Okay, carried. That staff report's carried. Okay, any further staff reports? Seeing none. All right, I can move on. Then we're at 15, committee minutes and recommendations. So we're on to have I got any committee minutes? Sorry, Joint Interim Fire Governance Advisory Committee minutes. I have that the minutes of the November 15th, 2022 Joint Interim Fire Governance Advisory Committee meeting be received. Mover second, put this on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Harper, seconded by Councillor Scott. Questions or concerns with the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. We're on to, there's no new business. We're on to consented bylaws. So I have 17.1 bylaw to amend the bylaw to private parking control. Bylaw to amend private parking control 2018-26 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of private parking enforcement agreement with the private parking control and traffic services and to appoint a municipal law enforcement officer for the provision of parking control and traffic services on certain private properties. 17.2, a bylaw to liaison appointment bylaw, a bylaw to appoint members of council to various boards for the term of 2022 to 2026. 17.3, bylaw 2022-108, committee of adjustments bylaw, a bylaw to constitute a committee of adjustment and appoint a members of committee of adjustments for the 2022-2026 term. Bylaw, oops, sorry, there's lots of bylaws here. Hang on. Where am I? Okay. Sorry, folks. My computer took off on me. Bylaw 2022-109, again, to appoint committees to the Holland Marsh Drainage Super Joint Municipal Service Board. That's to appoint members to that. Bylaw to appoint members to the Library Board. That's 2022-110. And then bylaw 2022-111, interim tax bylaw, a bylaw to provide for interim tax levies. Bylaw 2022-112, temporary borrowing bylaw, about authorized temporary borrowing. And bylaw 2022-113, bylaw and schedule 671 Simcoe zoning bylaw. So a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2010-050 as amended for lands located on the south half of lot 15, concession 5, Mission known as 671 Simcoe Road, town of Bradford, Gwillimbury, Simcoe County. And then a bylaw 2022-114, delegation of development approval authority, a bylaw to provide for the delegation of development approval authority. So where is my bylaw? Sorry. Back here. Here it is. Sorry, so I have that bylaw 2022 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114 be enacted. Mover second, so Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Verkuyk. Questions or concerns on any of the bylaws? Councillor Giordano.
I'd just like to make a bit of a statement. So I was extremely ill at the time of several of these let's call it the appointments. And I was not able to vote. I would like to say though, congratulations to everybody that applied. Thank you, everyone. I'm sure it was quite difficult for everyone to make the decisions on who was appointed, and we look forward to working with everybody. So I'm sorry I wasn't there, but thank you very much for everything that you guys did, and I look forward to working with everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Giordano. We appreciate that you stayed home that night. I know you were deathly ill, so it was a tough one for you. I know it was our first council meeting and it was very tough for you to stay home, but we appreciate that and not getting everybody else sick. So thank you for your comments. County council updates. We don't have a county council update. Oh, sorry. Yeah, vote. Sorry. Got to vote on the bylaws. Sorry. All in favor of the bylaws? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to county council updates. There's no county council update. We had our inauguration on, what was it? December 13th. Yeah, thank you. December 13th. And the warden was selected, and it's Warden Basil Clark. So, Deputy Mayor.
Your worship, I do want to congratulate you for becoming the chair of Human Resources, which in my mind is an important committee to chair.
Thank you. It is an important one for us, and I appreciate that. And I look forward to being the chair and then bringing doing the best I can at the county to hopefully provide social service throughout the county. So, all right, we have our general announcements now. 18.2. We have the community events, the Family First Night. So December 31st, 6 to 9 at the BWG Leisure Center. Skating, crafts, shows, fireworks at 9 o'clock. Everything opens up at 6. So we'll see folks there. Hopefully council can make it out. We'll probably just do a welcome at 6 and then we'll do a countdown at 9 o'clock for fireworks. So looking forward to that. That's a fun night. And then we have the mayor's New Year's levy. That's Sunday, January 8th at 2023. So at 12 to 2:15, again at the Leisure Center. Come join us for an afternoon skate music, and council will be serving cake. Folks will be serving it, not eating it. We'll eat it after. So anyways, yeah, that's our, and then we have our holiday closure schedule is here. So the town offices close at noon on the 23rd to the 2nd. There'll be no transit service from on December 26th and 27th and January 2nd. The public library is closed for the 25th, 26th, 27th and January 1 and 2. And Leisure Center is closed for the day December 25th and January 1st. So please make note, all our services are open on other days throughout the holidays. So, all right, and that's it for anybody have any other general announcements they'd like to make? Oh, okay. Okay, any announcement you'd like to make? Councillor Harper?
I just like to reflect on that, in your illness this weekend, Deputy Mayor Raj Sandhu jumped in to fill the shoes there for you, and we were able to give him support there. But lighting the menorah for celebrating Hanukkah there, what a special event. And, we all had a chance to say a couple words there as well. So well done. It was a pleasure. And, especially to the community there, for the Jewish community, happy Hanukkah as well for that.
Yes, thanks for reminding me, Councillor Harper, because I really appreciate council stepping in. I was under the weather a little bit and I thought I shouldn't share my cold. I didn't want to get out there and share cold before Christmas. So I stayed home for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, basically, and medicated as best I could and feel much better now. So it was a thank you to everybody for stepping up and doing that for me. I really appreciate that. And thank you, Deputy Mayor. I've seen some of the posts on Facebook and they look pretty good. You guys are looking like you're having a fun time, and I've seen the jelly donuts. So were they good? They're a fan favorite of mine. Okay, great. Glad everybody had a good time. All right, so we'll move on to section 19 and we have a notice of motion. So Councillor Scott.
I've submitted notice of motion on behalf of myself and Councillor Ferragini related to federal funding to protect Lake Simcoe, follow up to last year's motion, given that they only did so much towards what we asked for. And then I'm also just going to ask the clerk, I know a motion to reconsider is always in order. but it has to be from the prevailing side. In the event that it was a tie, am I the prevailing side? In that case,
Yes.
I would like to move a motion to reconsider item 15.2. I think, council, if we could just indulge one member who had to step out, it would be well worthwhile to the business owners who are here just before the holiday to give this one final consideration and let all councillors who are present vote. So I would move a motion to reconsider that item, please.
Yeah. All right, so we're okay to do the reconsideration? Is that a yes? Yes. Okay, so I have a mover and a seconder from Deputy Mayor Sandu. Back to item. Correct. Okay, then we go back to, okay. So the motion to reconsider but we don't have to know the item. What item was it again? 15.2. Okay, so we're reconsidering 15.2. That's the sign variance bylaw that we had, the downtown one, yeah. 105 Holland, that's the one, yeah. What's that? 12.7, that's what I need. I need to know the number. Yes, 12.7, you're right. Okay, so we're reconsidering, that's a reconsider motion. It was tied, it was a tied motion, so all in favor of the reconsideration?
I have a question.
Yep.
Can you explain, because I left, what are we reconsidering?
So when you left, we were on 12.7. We were dealing with the sign bylaw variance for the downtown 105 Holland Street East downtown.
Right.
When you walked out, Councillor Scott called the question.
Mhm.
We had to call the vote then, and so it became a 3-3 tie, and a tie is a defeat.
Okay.
A tie is always a defeat.
Mhm.
So,
So we're voting on deferring.
well, Councillor Scott has now said he'd like to do a reconsideration. Let's reconsider this. Now that you're back at the table, he's wondering if you'd like to reconsider this issue, 12.7.
I'm gonna be very, very honest.
Well, you just have to vote yes or no.
I know I'm gonna.
No
vote with
debate.
it. Oh, no
No debate.
debate. Oh, well.
Yes or no. So I'm going to call the question again.
Yeah.
I'm going to call for the reconsideration vote. All in favor of the reconsideration? All opposed? It's still a tie. Well, it's no, it's it's lost. It's lost. Okay, because even if you don't put your hand up, it's still a no vote. It's still a no vote, which is fine. That's okay. Same thing. That's fine. Okay, so it's the reconsideration didn't carry. We're done with that. We're back to she didn't vote, so it's a no vote. She doesn't have to vote. No, I said that. I know she doesn't have to vote. It's defeated. Yeah, okay. Yeah, give me.
Just a motion to reconsider. Essentially, it gives council a second chance to on a matter that's already been decided. The motion to reconsider is, do you want to talk about that old motion again? It's not actually voting on the motion. It's just to bring it back to the floor is the motion to reconsider. So at the moment, council considering a reconsideration motion would just mean that item 12.7 would be put back onto the floor for further discussion and another vote.
So are you understanding what we're trying to do then, or you're good with, you're comfortable with it? If you're not comfortable, just, it's fine. Okay, so, okay, leave it as is. Leave it as is. It's defeated. We are moving on to, confirming bylaw. So the bylaw 2022-115, a bylaw to confirm proceedings of the council meeting dated December 2022 be enacted. Move a second for this, please, to put on the floor. Deputy Mayor Sandu, Councillor Harper, all in favor? Carried, thank you. And adjournment motion, so. Yeah. The meeting is hereby adjourned at 9 o'clock. Move in a second, please. Moved by Councillor Scott, second by Councillor Verkuyk. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Merry Christmas.